The airport terminal was packed, voices bouncing off every wall, but one woman's shrill voice cut through it all like a siren. "That's my seat," she screamed, pointing straight at me. People turned. Security looked over. I just sat there, calm and quiet, while the gate agent checked her ticket. Then the agent blinked and said, "Ma'am, that's the pilot's seat." "My name's Daniel Hayes, commercial pilot for
We've got a
over
passenger
15
who's
years.
created quite a disturbance.
I've seen my fair share of turbulence, both in the air and on the ground, but nothing quite prepared me for the chaos that started at Gate C-14 that afternoon. It was one of those long days at Denver International, when every flight seemed delayed by weather somewhere else. I had a short layover before my next run to Seattle, so I changed into my uniform, grabbed a coffee, and sat quietly near the gate, reviewing flight logs on my tablet. The terminal buzzed with that restless pre-boarding energy, kids tugging on luggage straps, businessmen barking into phones, couples arguing about snacks. Amid the noise, I noticed her, mid-50s, oversized sunglasses indoors, the kind of confidence that comes from thinking the world owes you an apology. She stood near the boarding counter, scolding the gate agent about her special upgrade that apparently didn't exist. I tried not to pay attention until she started glaring at me. I wasn't even sure why. Maybe it was the uniform, maybe she thought I was in her way, or maybe she just needed someone to take out her frustration on. When the boarding call came, I stood up and walked toward the jet bridge, ready to take my seat in the cockpit. That's when she followed, heels clicking fast, tone rising with every step. She stopped right behind me in line, muttering something about people pretending to be pilots just to get better seats. By the time we reached the scanner, her whisper turned into a full-blown accusation. She pointed right at me and snapped, "That's my seat, you can't just take it because you're wearing a costume." The entire gate went silent when she said it. You could hear the wheels of a suitcase bumping in the distance. The gate agent froze mid-scan, glancing between us like she'd just been handed a live grenade. "Ma'am," the young agent began, voice soft but tense, "this gentleman is..." Karen cut her off with a sharp wave of her hand. "I know exactly what he is, another one of those fake pilots trying to sneak into first class. I've seen it before. They put on uniforms and act like they own the place. Now, I've been insulted before. Flight delays can bring out the worst in people, but this was something else." The poor gate agent tried again to explain, but Karen wasn't letting go. She stepped right in front of me, blocking my path. Her perfume hit like a wall, and she jabbed a manicured finger toward my badge. "If you're really a pilot," she demanded, "then why are you boarding before me?" "Ha! I paid for priority seating." I took a slow breath, doing what every pilot learns early: stay calm under pressure. I smiled politely. "Ma'am, I think there's been some misunderstanding. I'm actually the..." "Don't you ma'am me," she barked, loud enough to turn heads across the terminal. "I've been flying for 30 years, and I know what pilots look like. You're not one. You're some wannabe trying to sit in my seat." People started whispering, pulling out their phones. The gate agent radioed for a supervisor while Karen continued her tirade. I could feel a mix of irritation and pity creeping in, but I stayed still. Arguing would only make it worse. Moments later, the operations manager showed up, a tall woman with the patience of a saint. She approached with that half-smile customer service workers wear right before they lose their mind. "Ma'am, can you please step aside? This man, don't cover for him." Karen yelled again. "You airline people are all the same. You let imposters on planes while paying customers like me get treated like trash." The supervisor sighed, looked at me, then quietly said, "Captain Hayes, just head on through. I'll handle this." That's when Karen froze. The word captain hung in the air like thunder. For a split second, you could see her trying to piece it together. But she still didn't believe it. "Captain? Oh, please. I bet he printed that badge at home." By now, the boarding gate looked like a small courtroom. Dozens of passengers were pretending not to watch, phones angled just enough to record the chaos. Karen wasn't slowing down. Her voice carried across the terminal as she kept arguing with the supervisor. "I'm not moving until you check his credentials," she snapped. "If this man steps on that plane, I'm calling the FAA myself." That was it, the moment that flipped the switch in me. I wasn't angry for myself anymore. I was angry because she was now questioning the integrity of my entire crew and the airline that trusted me with hundreds of lives every week. The supervisor looked to me, almost asking silently what to do. I gave her a small nod. "Go ahead," I said quietly. "Verify it." Karen smirked, crossing her arms. "Good. Let's see how your little story holds up." So, the supervisor picked up her radio and called the control room. A moment later, a crisp voice came over the speaker. "Captain Daniel Hayes, confirmed pilot in command, Flight 227 to Denver." The gate went still. Karen's grin evaporated. But she still couldn't back down. "Well, maybe he's a backup pilot or something," she muttered, fumbling for dignity. That was when the intercom chimed, and the boarding announcement came: "Flight crew, prepare for pre-boarding." I adjusted my cap and said, "Excuse me, ma'am. Time for work." I could have marched back down the jet bridge and shouted until the tannoy turned me into a viral spectacle, but that's not how you get a problem fixed, especially when safety and reputation are involved. So I did what pilots do: I leaned on procedure and patience. First, I asked Amber to save the gate camera footage and to copy any passenger clips she'd received. She nodded and did it without drama. Employees see their fair share of entitled behavior and know how quickly a small scene can become an airline liability. Then I quietly asked two of the people who'd filmed, an older couple and a young woman, to forward their raw files with timestamps to the airline's customer relations email and to security at airline. They agreed. That simple redundancy matters. When three independent records line up, denial becomes hard. Next, I walked into ops and asked the supervisor to open a conduct report under the flight number. I described what happened in calm, precise language, times, words Karen used, her threats to call the FAA. I wasn't looking for theatrics, I was building a trail that corporate would have to honor. The ops manager promised to flag it and to notify the passenger conduct team. He also agreed to log the foreman's account of the attempted intimidation. Then I made a small, strategic request. Could they consider moving her out of first class for safety and comfort if she continued to disrupt boarding? It wasn't punishment so much as risk management, and the operations person agreed. There's precedent for refusing upgrades to disruptive travelers. I asked security to be on a casual standby and to keep an eye on her boarding pass. They did. Mini twist. Karen thought she could head me off by firing off an angry email to the airline right after we parted ways. She didn't know multiple passengers had already sent their clips. By the time her rant hit customer relations, a stack of corroborating evidence was waiting on the manager's desk. Her story suddenly read like a defensive afterthought. Finally, I asked Amber to make a single, neutral public announcement at boarding. Due to operational priorities, first-class seating will be managed by the gate team. It sounded bland, but in context it told everyone, the crew, and not entitlement, dictates who sits where. That was enough. Paperwork, witnesses, and quiet procedure had replaced shouting. The stage was set. Boarding reached the final call, and that's when the quiet, inevitable moment arrived. The ops manager stepped up to the podium with the kind of practiced calm that makes people listen. "Folks, a quick announcement," she said. "Due to disruptive behavior this afternoon, Our gate team will be managing first-class seating for this flight. We ask for everyone's cooperation." It was bland, bureaucratic, but in the right way. It put the decision in black and white, not in the voice of one angry person. Karen's jaw tightened. She started to protest, voice rising, but Amber calmly held up a tablet and pressed play. The gate camera footage rolled on the screen for the small crowd near the gate, her pointing, her shouting, the exact words she'd screamed. A couple of passenger clips lined up beside it, different angles, the same story. The sound of her own rant filled the little space, and for a beat she looked like someone watching themselves on TV, embarrassed to be so ardent and so wrong. The ops manager read from the conduct report, the language dry but factual, repeated disruptive conduct. Passenger will be reseated to a non-upgrade cabin for the safety and comfort of others. Security, nearby and composed, stepped in politely and offered to escort her to a different section. Karen went purple, sputtered about refunds and "the airline owes me," then, when she saw the stares and the quiet nods from people who'd watched the footage, she folded. No dramatic scene, just a slinking shuffle to the assigned seat, a receipt for the downgraded fare, and a note that her record would be flagged. What felt best wasn't her blush or the muted applause, it was the way order reclaimed the gate. The crew could prepare in peace, passengers settled with relieved sighs, and I walked past, a real uniform, a real responsibility, into the cockpit with the soft, steady satisfaction of someone who'd let truth do the work. The flight itself was peaceful. Passengers smiled when I greeted them from the cockpit, some giving small, knowing nods. Word had spread quietly, and everyone seemed relieved that the loud drama had finally died down. When we landed in Dallas, Karen avoided eye contact. She was one of the last to leave, clutching her handbag like a lifeline, her once perfect confidence deflated into silence. A few days later, Amber forwarded me an internal memo. Karen had filed a complaint, of course, but the airline reviewed the footage and sided with the staff. Her name was added to the disruptive passenger list, meaning her future flights would require management approval. A polite but firm reminder that courtesy still matters, even 30,000 feet in the air. Amber and I kept in touch, exchanging stories from different routes. Every time we passed through that same terminal, someone would whisper, "That's the pilot from the Karen flight." It became a small legend among the crew, a quiet, satisfying reminder that sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting back. It's letting professionalism do the talking. As the plane cut through the morning clouds, I glanced back at the passengers. Everyone was calm, some even smiling, completely unaware of the scene that had unfolded just an hour earlier. Karen sat quietly near the back, staring out the window, her earlier arrogance replaced with silence. For me, it wasn't about revenge, it was about respect. Sometimes people forget that kindness gets you further than entitlement ever will. When we landed, she avoided my eyes as she exited the aircraft. I just gave her a polite nod. No words needed. The best apology is quiet understanding. If you enjoyed this story and want more real-life tales of poetic justice like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more stories where karma takes the captain's seat, and trust me, you don't want to miss the next flight.